Hey, welcome back. This is Gordon for Inspiration Tats, and this is part 3 of modeling the Kar98. Last time we worked on a lot of things, and now we're gonna continue further and create even more details. So we're gonna start off with a cylinder, and of course, we are gonna create the bolt right now, and this is this handle that allows us to take out the empty bullets, and of course we're gonna create other pieces as well alongside them. And actually this area is the one that is gonna be the most confusing if you haven't modeled this weapon before, because of course you need to look at the reference images that I gave you a lot in order to get it and in order to understand the separate pieces that are gonna be combined in order to create the this area exactly as it is. So we're gonna try to place this cylinder where it is supposed to be, somewhere in the middle, somewhere in the middle, and of course, yeah, you can see me right now trying to put it exactly or something close to where it should be. Okay, and now this cylinder has a little bit of details. Of course, we're gonna use the connect tool and do the ring and connect operations. And of course, we need to place them somewhere where they're gonna be properly positioned. Okay, you're gonna extrude right here. Okay, we're trying to create more lines over here. So now we are trying to actually select the area where the bolt or the handle of the bolt is, whatever is going to be is gonna take birth from this area. And of course we need to make sure that it is gonna be circular, or at least something that this is gonna be cylindrical, because it is like this in the weapon, and it is what we can see in the reverse image. And of course the starting point, as you can see here, is something that is rectangular. And from that we're gonna try to create that cylinder or cylindrical shape. Okay, right now I'm trying to figure out where exactly and how this is gonna be the starting point for the next piece. Probably we need to connect these and of course you need to add a line in the center. right. Okay, we're gonna try to select these forward C's and scale them in to get something that is circular. Alright, so now as you can see here, I'm using a line, and this line is going to be transformed into a 3D object, which is a cylinder. And then we're going to connect them to this piece, and they're going to make one piece as a combination of the two things that we are creating right now. So we are trying to actually shape this handle as good as we can, or as best as we can, because when we convert to we convert to a 3D object, it's gonna be difficult. It's not that difficult, but it is gonna be harder at least to modify it later. So we're trying to shape this spline because it is easy to shape, and it is it is actually better, and it's gonna give us less headaches. Okay, and we probably don't need that many lines in here and splines, and we're gonna remove them. And as you can see, they were actually not necessary at all because they haven't affected the shape of this tube. Alright, so now we are gonna do the bridging process. So we're gonna bridge like this. And the next thing is to create a sphere, and this sphere is gonna be important. And of course, we're gonna attach it together with the piece that we are creating right now, because they are a complete one piece. And of course, we're gonna try to reduce the number of segments there, because 32 is a little bit higher than it is necessary. Of course, we are running into a problem right now, and tell me, what is that problem? It is actually the fact that um, I actually didn't I underestimated what I actually underestimated the size and thickness of the handle of this handle, and it is actually a lot bigger than it is right now. That's why you need to look at the reference image that you have frequently, and don't neglect, actually don't actually forget what you are trying to create based on the reference image. So now I'm trying to recover from this using the shell modifier, and it is actually a quick way in order to um, get thicker objects without without facing a lot of trouble. And of course, it can work sometimes, and sometimes it is just difficult to get things to work. And for most cases, it is gonna work using the shell modifier in order to get things to get thicker. Especially if this object is not something that that is regular and that you see every day, uh, especially if it is something like a tube or a bent cylinder. It's gonna be difficult to get it to be thick because of the orientation in space, and it is basically difficult to increase something or an object on from all dimensions and in all axes at the same time with the same rate of scale or rate of scaling, or the same change in size. It's just difficult, and the shell modifier is very good at doing this, so it is the best option we have for now. And this is something, actually, to be honest, I figure out myself. I never seen someone do this, and I think it is a good idea to work using the shell modifier. And if there is another better option, please tell me in the comment section below. So now we are facing also a challenge in order to make this piece to get it to attach to this handle again, because the difference in size is noticeable right now. Alright, now it seems that it is working. Alright, so now let's go back to the sphere that we created. And of course, we need to make it a little bit bigger, and of course, we need to reduce the number of segments noticeably. Alright, now we're gonna try to do the same thing that we've done previously, which is to create a simple way in order to attach or bridge between these two pieces, which is pretty easy in this case. Okay, we're trying to create a piece that is gonna be extruded here on the side. The problem is uh, this this piece is not exactly as I want it to be, but yeah. Alright, now we're trying to work on some details that are gonna take place in this area, and they're not gonna be very noticeable. Anyways, these actually these details are not gonna be seen until the bolt and this handle and the bolt are gonna be pulled out, which is not something that we are gonna see often, but it is a good idea to work on the details, and it is actually a good exercise. It is an excellent exercise. Alright, now we borrowed this that plane and converted it into a box in order to um, create a cavity in this area. And the purpose of this is to use the boolean tool, which is gonna create an empty space in there and gonna replace the box that we are gonna remove. And there is a downside to using the boolean or the pro-boolean, and that is that we're gonna do a lot of repair. Of course, we're gonna connect these vertices in order to make things work again. Now, now we're trying to connect these vertices, and of course there are a lot of them. So it is actually this process is very manual, and it's gonna take a little bit of time. We probably have forgotten some of the areas and we haven't connected them. Probably I'm gonna do them later because this may take a lot of time, and we'll try to focus on the main areas, and later on we're gonna complete the rest of the vertices, and we're gonna continue to attach them or to connect them together. Okay, I actually stopped the video and completed some of the areas that need to the vertices need to be connected, and there this thing is very common when we use the boolean, and it is actually something easy to fix, but it is gonna take a little bit of time. So now we're gonna as you can see here, give this piece smoothing groups. Actually, I went through the process very quickly, and now I'm gonna add the quad chamfer. And of course, using the quad chamfer modifier, you're gonna have to, and in new versions 3S Max 16, 17, and 18, and so on and so forth, you're not gonna find the quad chamfer modifier. You're gonna find a chamfer modifier that look similar to this one. And the results are quite good, as we can see. There are actually a few things we need to work on in order to get good results when we use the turbo smooth modifier. Alright, it seems like some areas in here in this piece are not really working as we want them to. So we probably need to connect some of the vertices here in order to see something that we are happy with. Alright, I actually hate this waviness in the edges when we apply the turbo smooth modifier, but we're gonna probably fix this later. So now we are actually a little bit satisfied, at least for now, with the results that we have, and we're gonna try to continue to the other pieces. Alright, now we're gonna continue here and work on the bolt sleeve, which is the next piece, and of course it's gonna be a little bit complicated, but we're gonna manage to walk through it in a way that is gonna be convenient. Alright, so of course I'm gonna borrow a something like a cylinder here, and of course we did this in order to get this next piece to be exactly on top of the previous one. All right, there is and as you can see on the reference image, there is misalignment between the model and the reference image, and this is um, due to some practical reasons, but don't bother yourselves a lot about this, because as long as this works, we're gonna make it look better. Okay, now as you can see, we are working on the bolt sleeve, which is actually is gonna be a little bit interesting as we go further and try to create more details related to it. And the most difficult part about it is that the front or the back side of this bolt sleeve, because it has kind of it is a triangular, and we need to also make every side of it unique, give it a unique look. And of course, this depends on our ability to read the reference images properly, and of course, we need to do a lot of um, kind of looking to the reference images and going back and forth in between. And of course, there is another issue, which is um, the fact that the some of the sides or some of the areas in this piece are gonna be difficult to work with, since the axes are not gonna be horizontal, or not, and they are not gonna be vertical. So we're gonna do some manual rotation and moving and scaling. And don't worry about how this piece looks right now, because as we go further and as we create more details, and as we advance further, we're gonna try to make it look better. All right, so as you can see here, we're trying to actually get this thing to work. And as you have noticed by watching this so far, it is a slow process because as I'm modeling this piece, I'm trying to get things to work properly, and I don't want to kind of misread the reference images I have, and I don't want to make mistakes and then go back and fix them, which is going to um, um, be problematic since we don't have a lot of time, and I don't want to bore you with looking at the mistakes I make. So I'm trying to be a little bit careful here, even though I'm a little bit slow, but you can see something clean and something that can be understood properly. And in the reference images I gave you, the pieces are pretty organized, and I gave you several images for the same piece in order to understand and how it looks better. All right, now um, we're gonna try to close this area right here and connect some of the vertices as you can see. I'm actually now going to. This is a little bit weird, but right now I'm gonna do something totally different, which is I tried the manual route, and it was a good exercise, but it seems like we need to apply the boolean because we want something accurate. But remember that this comes at a cost. That's why I avoided it at first. But it seems now that it is a good option. All right, it seems like the number of sides in the cylinders is a little bit high, so we're gonna reduce it a little bit more to something like 12 or 14. All right, so now we are trying to do some repair to things that happen after we apply the boolean tool to this piece. And of course, this is something that is gonna be repetitive and it's gonna be a little bit boring. All right, right now this the bolt sleeve is actually looking better and better as we are tweaking it and as we try to make it look better. Actually, this is just um, the things we model right now are just can be considered a beginning for um, the what we are gonna do in order to make this piece look better. And there are some tweaks, there are some modifications that we are gonna work on right now that don't seem as important as they look, but they are important in order to get that nice look that we're gonna see from above. And of course, all these details are important, so we don't want to neglect any part because at the end, these small details are what gonna give this weapon the charm that we are looking for. Even though I was a little bit careful when it came to avoiding repetition and doing things over and over, I actually made some steps backwards in order to make this piece look better. Sometimes you don't understand what you are working on until you do work on it, and the price is revisions and wasting some time. But at the end, if you get something that you are satisfied with, it is probably gonna be worth it. And as you can see, what I told you about this piece is that every side has its unique look as so far, and I'm pretty happy with the result that we've got already. And if you haven't been able to get this, you need to actually follow what you see on the first image and try to get as close as possible. Just don't just follow or mimic what I'm doing on what you can see on screen, because it can confuse you more in or if you want to get something extremely similar to what I have. And to be honest with you, um, this is the most difficult piece I had to model in this weapon at all. So from the beginning until now, this is the most challenging part so far. And it's not challenging in the sense that I was not able to do it, or the things that faced me in this piece were that difficult, but it means that it is the most challenging so far compared to the pieces I created previously in the Kar98. And if you could complete this step successfully, you are on your way to creating much more complicated pieces. And yeah, and actually this reminds me of the mechanical pieces that you find in cars and motorcycles and complex vehicles. And there are some specific softwares that Autodesk has created in order to create these pieces easily and smoothly. Probably we're gonna talk about these tools and softwares in the future. For now, we are happy with the result we have got right now, and we are gonna make sure that the next piece we're gonna create is gonna be interesting as well. So the Kar98 is looking interesting so far, and let's take a look around in order to make sure that this piece as well is gonna be quite chamfered, and the smoothing groups are taking place, and yeah. Okay, the next piece we're gonna work on is not gonna be that difficult. Right now we're gonna continue working on what we been doing, or what we've been creating so far. And for now we're gonna create a piece that is gonna be called the safety. And it's not gonna be complicated, even though there are gonna be some interesting details that we are gonna work on in order to make it look as it should be. Try to place this plane in a position where it's gonna be acceptable. And of course, don't worry about the size and the proportion of this piece compared to the other pieces, because we're gonna work on these issues later on. So now keep creating these lines, and these lines are gonna allow us to define the basic kind of separation between the details that we're gonna create. And of course it's gonna allow us to extrude the areas we want to be bumped out, or and the cavities or the places that we're gonna be basically we want to extrude negatively, which means that we want to push in. And this is very important in order to block out the shape of this piece. And of course we're gonna later on actually change the proportions to something that we are happy with. So now we are gonna use the boolean tool in order to cut out some of these areas, since doing this manually is gonna take a little bit longer and is not gonna be as accurate. Change the radius of the cylinder until you get something you're happy with. And there is something very important you need to do with me, which is to follow me as I'm working on these pieces. on the guide of reference images I gave you, because this is really important. Okay, now as you can see, using the Pro tool, uh, is gonna allow us to get something clean like this. But the issue, as usual, is to clean the model and connect the missing pieces and the missing vertices that need to be connected. This is very important to do after using the Boolean tools. And there is another piece that we're gonna work on right now in the next 10 to 20 minutes, which is what we call the cooking piece. Believe it or not, there are some weird names, and we need to use the naming convention in order to understand where we are exactly, and in order to, for you, if you want to search for more reference images related to these little pieces, it's gonna be a little bit easier for you. Actually, working on these areas is delicious. Believe it or not, it's reaching a point where you are adding details is actually very exciting for me. I love it. So now we are trying to align the cylinder with the piece, which are together they form, or they create the safety piece. Okay, attaching them together is an imperative because they are actually one. So using the bridge is going to be a great solution to do this. Okay, now we are starting to connect these vertices together, and of course it is very important to connect all the vertices, whether it's going to be in form of triangles or quadrants. And of course we have to connect everything as we said before, even though we are gonna create a lot of triangles. In fact, this cylindrical part has more work to do on it, and we're gonna do some boolean on top of it. So I think it could have been a better idea if we left adding these details later on until we work on until we use the Boolean modifier first. or tool. Okay, now we are going to actually use the boolean tool in order to create these little details. And ironically, all the work we've done and all what we connected before, the pieces we connected before, were actually removed. So this is very important thing to remember. Alright, so in the next few minutes we're gonna focus on the maintenance work, which is connecting the pieces and connecting these vertices. And this is not something, it's not a greater deal actually. Alright, I stopped the video for a couple of minutes and continued the process of connecting the vertices because it was repetitive and tedious. So now applying the quad chamfer tool and our modifier and the turbo smooth is gonna give us a lot of good stuff. So now we probably need to do some modification, which is very important in order to get something proportional with the rest of the pieces, as we were saying before. Alright, we're achieving some good progress here, but uh, it's very important to not forget some of these vertices, because it's gonna be very brutal when we look at it in the final result. Alright, now we're gonna start working on the what we call the cooking piece. We're gonna start off with cylinder as usual, because this is the basic, or this is just a starting point, and later we're gonna do work on some details. Actually, working on this cooking piece is not gonna be difficult. It's very simple. Of course, creating this piece is not gonna be a challenge, and it's a very simple piece, and it is actually a good exercise. Alright, there isn't much to say about this piece actually, because these things are things that we have been working on in in different ways, in different projects, and these ways are simple, of course. Alright, there is another piece that is going to be in the center of the cooking piece, which is actually a simple cylinder, a simple a half chamfered cylinder. And now it is time to actually take a look at it and what we have done so far. So we worked in these few minutes on the most important pieces in the Kar98, and as you can see here, I'm trying to rotate and pull it out in order to see if this is gonna be practical or not. And it seems like it is. Alright, after working on the most complicated pieces in this area, we're gonna extend this part. As you can see here, this small part. So it seems from looking at the reference images that this part here should be extended even longer, and it's gonna go beneath and underneath the pieces that are gonna be located behind it. So now we are taking a quick look around in order to estimate how this operation is going to be done. Because proportion is and should be highly respected in these matters, because everything should be calculated correctly in order to get something proportional and pleasant when we look at it. Now we are trying to fix some of the depth issues in the stock, in the wood, and the piece of wood that we call the stock. And to be honest, doing this extension is not going to be difficult, but to put it correctly, it seems like we have some issues with the height of this piece and maybe the depth of the cavity that we created for the stock or for the piece of wood compared to where the other pieces are located. So now we're adding this line here in order to maybe fix this situation a little bit. And of course, the secret to getting something that you like is taking a time looking at reference images and trying to understand how the model is created. I have actually collected a wealth of reference images that as I said before previously, several times. There is a folder you can download on my Patreon page, which contains a lot of images and a lot of resources that are gonna help you to design this weapon piece by piece. There is something we're gonna do here, which is to lower the height of this piece in order to actually end up with something um, close to what we want. So sometimes you need to compromise the relationship between the model or the model that we are working on and the reference image that we have in order to create something that looks pleasant and something that works. Alright, so now we are going to actually work on this piece in order to get it to fit in this situation. So we're gonna chamfer this edge right there in order to smooth things out a little bit more. This process is actually kind of boring and slow, so bear with me here until we complete it, because it is important to get this part right. And of course we need to create some edges right here in order to make this part kind of go inside the empty space inside the wood. So we need to push it down a little bit like this, and in order as well to keep the horizontal level. This is not exactly what we could see in a real piece when we compare this to the actual piece, but it is something very close to what we want to see. All right, we are trying now to fix some of the some of the position of these vertices, and um, doing the extrude, or applying the extrude modifier here is gonna be important in order to get that look that we are looking for. That's why it was very important to push this part inside the wood in order to, when we extrude this part, it's not gonna be sticking out of the stock. We want it to be just horizontal with the height of the stock, if you get what I mean, of course. So now we're gonna create the smoothing groups manually, as you can see here, and after this we're going to apply the quad chamfer, or the chamfering modifier that um, that comes with your 3ds Max version. In some versions, it depends actually. The chamfer modifier doesn't actually exist in the early versions, for example 2014 and 13. Probably they installed it around 16th version 2016 and 15, or maybe I'm sure that it exists in the 2016 version, but the earlier versions I'm not very sure. So this specific piece um, is a little bit complicated for the auto smooth to get exactly a clear idea about what are the part that we want them to be, we want to be smooth, and what are the groups that we're going to use in order to do or in order to complete this process. So do this manually is going to be a good option in order to avoid confusion. Okay, this is something that we can call actually something that we can be satisfied with. And for now, we need to take a closer look at what we created previously, and delete actually some of the vertices as you've seen that are not actually important, and connect others. Okay, this part here is also important because it allows this the bolt handle to actually move freely when we reload. So we're gonna extrude it like this negatively, and of course we need to make sure that things are smooth. And of course um, this area here of course needs to be deleted because we don't have that um, we don't really need to see this effect on the other side of the stock, because um, it is just not necessary, and it is not in the original design. Okay, now after completing some of the important areas in the stock, it is time to um, it is time actually to do apply some smoothing groups. After, of course, we continue and we complete working on the unresolved issues when it comes to the mesh. The chamfer modifier is important, and even though the um, this looks good so far, but there are some problems here because we need things to look smooth, not completely distorted like we can see in this area. Okay, this looks better, even though there is a major problem there, which is that the smoothing groups are not really fixed there. So I'm gonna fix them later. For now, we're gonna focus on the parts. For example, this side. And now we're gonna continue um, completing. We're gonna complete actually what is left, and this is the bottom area, which is the trigger area, the trigger and the trigger guard, and some small pieces that are gonna be underneath it. So we're gonna continue actually creating these planes and modifying them until we get something that looks that actually grasps the original shape of the piece that we're gonna work on, and then we're gonna convert it to a 3D piece. Okay, we're gonna use this piece actually. We're gonna use it, and we're going to mirror it over to the other side. Okay, it seems like the trigger guard is a little bit unsmooth, so we're gonna smooth it a little bit using or adding more segments in between. Even though it seems like it is not very important to do this, but it actually is, and you're gonna see the effect of this taking place when we start baking the maps, especially the normal maps. The normal map is gonna be um, playing a big role in the result we're gonna get in the low poly version. And if the baked map um, is going to be applied on a very low poly version, then it's going to be difficult to see the high poly details in the low poly on the low poly model, because it just lacks the amount of actually of kind of the mesh is not sufficient to capture the details of the high poly. Using a low poly model doesn't mean that it's gonna be completely flat and detailsless, especially when we have something smooth like this in curves and curved areas like these. We need to add a little bit of details in order for the normal map to be applied correctly. Otherwise, we're gonna see a lot of distortions. All right, this empty space right there is gonna be important for the trigger to go through it. So now it is time to create the trigger itself, using the same processes that we've been using previously. Alright, now we're gonna convert it into 3D using the shell modifier, and we're gonna push it where it is supposed to be. Alright, now we're gonna start working on some of the pieces that are underneath the stock, and uh, to be honest, these pieces are something that we probably are not gonna see, but creating them is gonna be something that I feel is important to do in order to do something complete, and something that replicates the original model. We're going to modify some of the width and the space between some of these vertices in order to get something closer to what we can see on the reference image. We're gonna smooth things out a little bit right there. Using the chamfer is not gonna work properly because we need to select the areas that are not going to be related to um, the process. So actually, going back to the plain mode is gonna help a lot. Even though we could have just done it fine, just the way it was before. Okay, now we're trying to position this piece exactly where it should be. Alright, there is a little bit of extra work that we're gonna do here, which is creating this extra piece on top. And of course, this is gonna be necessary in order to get something that we are satisfied with. And it looks pleasant when we look at it, because this is actually how this piece is made. Okay, we are trying to add some details here, adding or using these edges, because this area here is kind of curved and has some details to it.
of course this piece is gonna be kind of sticking out, and it's not gonna be seen as much as we think it is, but at least there's gonna be something about it that is important. So now we are going to create the areas where there are going to be bolts, and of course we're going to use the Boolean method in order to achieve that, even though this requires some maintenance afterward. And in this area there are going to be two empty spaces for using some types of screws in order to do actually I don't know what is the purpose of that, but this is what actually it is. Alright, now we're gonna do something that is gonna be a little bit tricky, because we need to extend this piece a little bit more. Alright, we're trying to extend this piece as far as we can, because um, as we can see on the reference images, there is an extension of this piece that goes from the very start to the very end, and it goes above the trigger guard and beyond it. Okay, after applying the Boolean method for removing some cylindrical areas like these, we're gonna have to connect the dots again. And in order to get something easier to work on, we're gonna have to reduce the number of sides and the cylinder in order to get something clean. I think the modeling part is almost over for the Kar98, and yeah, it was a little bit over 5 hours, I believe, and this is was that was a sped up, which means in fact that was almost about 8 hours or something, and these are just um, the parts I've shown you, and there are a lot of things that I don't show you that I work on off camera, because this is what is required in order to get something beautiful and designed in a way that is acceptable. So do you please expect to spend a lot of time looking at reference images and comparing what you have done to what you've done previously. And of course, you need to check your work as you advance and go back further and review reference images and look for detailed images. If this is gonna be necessary, look at your detailed images and reference images for the pieces that you're gonna work on, because you need this kind of deep understanding of the model you are gonna work on, and this is gonna make the modeling process much easier. So if you are serious about this, you are gonna put a lot of effort and time to the research part, because if you have the technical skills, I consider this the most important thing in order to get something that is beautiful, and of course you are gonna have less headaches when you are gonna start working on your project. I hope this tutorial was useful, at least the modeling part. And yeah, in order to see more of these, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Take care, my friend.